Why excuses are actually a success strategy if you use them right. What if I told you that the excuses you've been making might actually be the most honest thing about you? Right? Most people have been told stop making excuses, push through, no excuses, right? That's a mantra that we hear all the time. But what if the advice, as well meant as it is actually what's holding you back from making progress? My name is Chris Stevenson, and I'm here on behalf of Sourena, the writer who can't write and the speaker who can't speak. Sourena was born with cerebral palsy, a disability that affects every aspect of his life, that gives him with challenges you and I will never have to face, and something that makes everything he does even that much more challenging. And it's closed doors, a lot of them. For a long time, those closed doors, he just blamed his disability. He said, well, if I didn't have this disability, those doors would open. But here's what he learned. The excuse wasn't the problem. It was how he was reacting to it. That was the problem, right? So in this video, we're going to talk about what an excuse actually is, the three-part anatomy of any excuse, and why most successful people don't eliminate their excuses. They use them strategically. These videos are a collaboration. Sourena, who has cerebral palsy, develops the written material, and I present it on camera.
We live in a nurse's market. And what we're going to do is a success strategy. And could you do how?
And I will tell you how. Believe it or not, excuses are often true, but also can be one of your biggest tools for accomplishing your goals.
Yeah.
The truth about excuses are not lies, they're facts. And facts can be worked with, right? Sourena's disability meant he can't have certain jobs. He couldn't live totally on his own. Those are just facts, right? You can see where they might be considered excuses, but the way Sourena sees them, the way you need to see these things are, it's just a fact, right? But facts are not final verdicts, right? Unless you treat them that way, which is not how you go about accomplishing your goals. But every excuse has a grain of truth in it, unless it's an outright lie. But most of the time, excuses are simply a statement of facts, right? Just because something is true doesn't mean you have to operate from that thinking. The off-ramp problem. Excuses are seductive because they're comfortable, right? They give us a reason to stop. And sometimes these excuses, people won't even blame you for. They'll actually pat you on the back and give you a hug and be like, yeah, it is what it is, right? So it can be seductive and it gives you an excuse to stop. But if you want to accomplish goals, obviously you can't just stop. So think about somebody who's had a handful of bad relationships and they just end up saying, love's just not for me. Well, that excuse is real, right? The pain is real, but the conclusion that nothing can change, that's where things start to fall apart, right? The fact is you've had bad relationships. The judgment you're using and now the excuse is I'll never find love, that's on you, right? So traditional excuse mindset turns facts into a ceiling. It stops us from making progress towards our goals. The strategic mindset turns that fact into a starting line. Sourena's disability closed so many doors on him career-wise that he had to think outside the box. He took that fact and thought, but what can I do? One thing he could do, write and speak, right? Yes, he needed some assistance, but he's done it and he's been very successful at it. So his limitation actually ended up giving him some direction and he followed that direction. Not all limitations are stop signs. Some are arrows pointing you in the direction you wouldn't have chosen on your own. Part one of the anatomy of an excuse, the excuse itself. Many of us only see the surface of our excuses. We don't take the time to dig deeper, right? You're late because of traffic. That's a fact, and that's true. But you didn't take the time to adequately prepare and give yourself enough time to get there. You don't have the skills to do the work. Well, have you actually put in the time to learn those skills, right? The honest excuse isn't the surface factor. It's the part you can actually do something about, right? So look at all the things that hold you back. Not just the single one you're comfortable pointing to, but look deeper. See what's really holding you back, right? Are there self-imposed limitations? Things like you're just not really truly willing to put the work, or you're blaming outside factors, or you're unwilling to ask other people for help. But examine everything that holds you back, not just the single thing that's at the surface level that you're comfortable pointing out. Part two in the anatomy of an excuse is the reaction, right? There's always a workaround. Always. Sourena has proven that in his life, there is always a workaround. Your reaction to the excuse determines your trajectory, right? Sourena believed he could never go to college, right? He just believed it would be impossible given the assistance that he needed, right? He needed too much help. That would never happen. And there was reality behind that excuse, right? But the truth was, once he dug deeper, it was that he wasn't willing to put in the systems and ask other people for the help that he needed. That was the real excuse. And that's a great example of surface level disability, can't go to college. Deeper, it wasn't a disability, it was his reluctance to ask for help for the things he needed to make sure he accomplished that. Once he changed his mindset, he had a most incredible experience throughout college, right? But if you don't have enough time, find time in your day. If you don't know how to do something, take the time to learn it. Because if you want to change your life, you have to change the way you react to your excuses. That's part 2 of the anatomy of an excuse, right? And that's where real transformation lives. So again, if you want to change your life, you've got to change your approach to life. And a lot of that has to do with the way you react to your excuses. Part 3 of the anatomy of an excuse are the consequences, right? Reputation, personal ceiling are 2 things Sourena wants me to share with you. So reputation, when you consistently make excuses, people stop trusting you, right? They're less likely to want to work with you. They're less likely to refer to you. They stop including you in things. So it damages your reputation, right? Reputation built through consistency and eroded through patterns of making excuses, right? Others will say, I want to work with them, but they're not reliable, or I want to hang out with them, but they're always negative, right? So it damages your reputation. And then there's the personal ceiling. That's the other part of the consequence, right? If Sourena had kept telling himself he just can't go to college, he would have never lived that experience. It creates a personal ceiling when you let that surface level excuse, you don't dig deeper, and you let it happen, and you let that excuse rule. That's what happens. The uncomfortable truth is very few people care about your success. You have to be the one that cares the most. And that means understanding the consequences of excuses if you don't deal with them properly. The strategic use of excuses. Using excuses strategically means treating them as intelligence, not identity, right? And there's a 3-step framework that Sourena likes to share with you. Step 1, name the excuse honestly. The clearer you are, the better position you'll be to move forward, right? Step 2, examine your reaction. Have you actually thought about a workaround? Don't just acknowledge the excuse, but change how you operate. And step 3, accept or address the consequences. Don't pretend they don't exist. You can't make an excuse without accepting the trade-off. And there's dangerous versus strategic. Dangerous is using an excuse to stop, pointing to them as reasons to give up. Strategic is, I don't have the connections yet, but I'm going to go out and find them. I don't have the skills yet, but I'm going to go out and learn it. I don't have the time. I'm going to figure out ways to manage my schedule better so I create the time. So a few of Sourena's key takeaways. 1, excuses are not the enemy, they're information. 2, your reaction to your excuses is where the real power lives. And 3, unaddressed excuses cost you 2 things, your reputation and your potential. So you don't have to eliminate all of your excuses. You just have to learn how to use them in a strategic way. That's how you build a life that you actually want to live, that works for you, even when it feels like life is giving you every reason for it not to. If you enjoyed this video and you found it helpful, and I'm sure that you did, make sure you like it, share it, and most importantly, subscribe to this channel.